All right, let's talk about an idea that feels kind of wrong, doesn't it? The idea that you only need to be right 1% of the time to win big. It sounds crazy, but this is actually a core principle in venture capital and game-changing innovation. Today, we're going to dig into the math and, more importantly, the mindset behind betting on those huge, massive wins.
So let me just ask you this, and it's a big one. What if being wrong is actually the secret to winning? I know it goes against everything we're taught, our obsession with avoiding failure, with getting everything right. What if that's the exact thing holding us back from those world-changing breakthroughs? We're going to explore how being wrong can be the only path to being monumentally right.
Okay, so this really boils down to two totally different ways of thinking. On one side, you've got the common view. The goal here is pretty simple. Get a high win rate, make small, steady gains, avoid failure like the plague. But then, there's the outlier edge. This is a completely different game. Here, success isn't about how often you win. It's about that one massive win that changes everything. And failure? Oh, it's not something you avoid. It's just part of the price of admission. It's a necessary cost. Now, if you want a perfect, real-world example of this in action, look no further than Walt Disney. You might think his empire was built on one success after another, right? Nope. The truth is it was funded by one single, massive win, a true outlier.
And the reality of his journey is pretty staggering when you lay it out. I mean, his early career was rough. We're talking serious financial struggles, even bankruptcy. For years after that, his studio was just churning out hundreds of cartoons that were fine, commercially mediocre. They were basically just keeping the lights on. But then, in 1937, he pushes all his chips in. He makes this enormous, all-or-nothing bet on a full-length animated movie called Snow White. And everyone, I mean everyone, thought he was insane. They literally called it Disney's folly. But the profits from that one movie, that single film, funded everything that came after. The parks, the future movies, the whole empire. That's a classic example of what we call a tail event. It paid for every single failure that came before it, and then some. So, was Disney just lucky? Not really. His story is a perfect illustration of this really powerful statistical idea that drives venture capital and huge growth markets. To get it, we need to talk about the power of tails.
Okay, so what in the world are tails? Well, think about it like this. In almost any system, most of the results, the outcomes, they all kind of cluster around the average. You can picture a huge, sharply peaked mountain, right? That's where all the normal, predictable results live. But the game changers, the billion-dollar ideas, the Snow Whites, they don't live on that mountain. They live way, way out on the edges, in these long, flat plains that statisticians call the tails of the distribution. These are the super rare outlier events. And here's the crazy part. Those few events out in the tails have more impact than all of the average stuff on the mountain combined. And believe me, this isn't just a fun theory for animators. This is the core operating system for some of the most successful investment strategies on the planet.
So who bets on tails? Well, venture capitalists are the absolute masters of this. A typical VC fund might back, say, 50 different startups. And get this, they go in fully expecting that 80% of them, that's 40 out of 50, are going to completely fail, go to zero. Because they aren't looking for small wins. They're hunting for that one single Google or Facebook in the batch that returns 10,000 times their money. That one winner pays for all the losses and then generates all the profit for the entire fund. And you see the same dynamic in art collecting, and even in something as safe as an index fund, where just a handful of superstar stocks, like an Apple or an Amazon, are responsible for most of the long-term growth.
Just let this sink in for a second. In these high-stakes games, you can literally be wrong half the time and still make an absolute fortune. In fact, you can be wrong 80 or even 90% of the time and come out way ahead. Think about that. It's just mathematically impossible in a normal business model that needs steady, consistent wins. It's because the key isn't your win rate, it's your win multiple. If just one of your bets returns, say, 100 times your investment, well, that more than covers 99 complete failures. So, what does this all mean for us? Well, the real takeaway here is a huge mindset shift. In any field where these kinds of outlier returns are even possible, and we're talking corporate R&D, personal projects, you name it, we have to completely change how we think about failure. It stops being a mistake, and it becomes a strategic cost. And this quote right here, this is the mantra. This is the whole thing in a nutshell. It's not about how often you are right. It's about how much money you make when you are right. And when you really get that, your entire focus just flips. You stop worrying about managing the downside of failure, and you start obsessing over maximizing the upside of a potential success. You literally stop asking, what if this fails? And you start asking, but if this works, just how big could it possibly be?
So here's the final thought. You have to completely reframe your relationship with failure. It is not an accident to be avoided. It is a line item on the budget. It's the cost of research and development for finding a true breakthrough. If you're running a corporate innovation lab, this means you fund 10 projects knowing that 9 of them are probably going to fail. Why? Because that 10th one could define the next decade for your entire company. So here's a challenge for you. For just one day, forget about your daily KPIs, your little incremental wins. Instead, look at everything you're working on and ask yourself one question. Which of these things has the potential to be a true outlier? Because that is why you only need to be right 1% of the time.